Mark Rogers, TV, ACC style, and talking Northwestern and Pitt getting together at the New Era Pinstripe Bowl, expecting a bit of a home run derby there at Yankee Stadium, bringing in Jim Hammett from Cardiac Hill to sort out a little pregame. Jim, appreciate the time here.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to be talking with you again.
Yeah, it's been a while. So let's break down the Panthers, because I got to say, I fell into the stereotype Pitt offense coming into the season. I thought it was going to be grinded out with Allison, with Connor, controlled passing game. We didn't know a whole lot about the wide receiver core coming back. Condrey Henderson obviously was a guy to look out for, but the offense just exploded. It just exploded.
Yeah, it's definitely not what we were expecting. Like you said, with the veteran offensive line, the running game with James Conner and Quadri Allison, we kind of expected more controlled tempo on offense. But what we saw, especially in that Syracuse game towards the end of the year, it was chaos. But a lot of different factors emerged. Quadri Henderson went from just being a good return man to a good offensive weapon. Jester Weah came out and made some big plays as a receiver. Scott Orndorff emerged. I mean, there were so many weapons, and we saw Matt Canada, the offensive coordinator, put together a really spectacular offense with the pieces he had in place.
Yeah, he's obviously had success elsewhere and is capable of mixing and matching and making it happen. Just most of us didn't see that coming. So now Northwestern is the opponent, a team out of the Big Ten that gave up big plays but also produced well, and that's not really been their MO in recent years either under Pat Fitzgerald. So couple teams breaking mold here in 2016. So what do we know about the Wildcats?
Well, we know they can score, and that's definitely a concern. If you're a Pitt follower, that Pitt's defense really hasn't been able to stop much of anyone this year. The defensive backfield has been just a mess all year, and teams have been throwing against them at will. And they've seen so many good offenses this year as well. I mean, they got to see Miami, they got to see Clemson, Penn State, a lot of great quarterback wide receiver combinations. And I think Northwestern presents a lot of the same challenges. Clayton Thorson threw for nearly 3,000 yards. Austin Carr's 1,000-yard receiver. So it's going to have their hands full. And, bowl games tend to get a little crazy, and I could see this one being kind of a shootout.
Yeah, last year Northwestern won 10 games, went into a bowl situation against Tennessee and was a bit outclassed athletically, but they really had Justin Jackson running for 1,300 or 1,400 yards, and Clayton Thorson was a freshman then and really could get nothing done in the passing game really the entire season. So they were kind of the mold of special teams defense and don't turn it over on offense to get the job done. And now Clayton Thorson, has turned into a legitimate threat, and his main guy downfield, Austin Carr, caught for 12 touchdowns, 1,200 yards, and he's a big threat. So your pass defense, if you just look at the raw numbers, 127th out of 128, that's just got to make Pat Narduzzi sick. I think he made that exact statement after the Syracuse game that he was really happy with the offense, but obviously the defense made him sick, and that's his heart and soul. So do you think they change things up in regards to trying to contain things rather than just saying, hey, we do what we do and we're going to leave the cornerbacks out there and try to get back into the opponent's backfield with Juan Price?
I mean, I don't think they're going to change at this point. They've done it 12 games all year. And, early on in the season, they gave up a lot of points to Penn State. Obviously, they won the game, but the following weeks they played North Carolina and Oklahoma State, and their corners were just sitting out on an island. And you thought, okay, this happened, maybe they'll adjust, and they never did. So Pitt's really kind of been running the same defense, and that's kind of been a criticism of Narduzzi, that he's been so stubborn. Being a defensive guy and being, that's his calling card, that he really hasn't made the adjustments yet, and it only makes things more difficult now that Jordan Whitehead's out for the season. So you have one of the worst secondaries in the country, and you take the only bright spot out of it. So and you saw what happened in the Syracuse game, and that might happen again against Northwestern.
Yeah, now that I start to run through some of the names when I'm setting up these questions, this game, for being a little bit of a lower-tiered bowl game, has some guys that maybe not necessarily are considered stars to the top rung, Baker Mayfield, J.T. Barrett, somebody like that. But still, obviously, James Conner can definitely be in that discussion. But there's a lot of guys who have made their mark in college football. Justin Jackson's been one of the better backs in the Big Ten for several years now. He's in that 1,500-yard category. Obviously, James Conner, what a story he's been as the ACC Offensive Player of the Year a couple of years ago, coming back from cancer to score 16 touchdowns, 1,000 yards. A lot of name players that have really been excellent college football players on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, definitely. And Pitt's a very senior-dominated team, and a lot of them are getting invited to the East-West Shrine Game, the Senior Bowl. You have Nate Peterman, the quarterback, Scott Orndorff, the tight end. Pitt has two very good offensive linemen, and Dorian Johnson and Adam Bisnavati. And, of course, Juan Price had a great year. So Pitt's very senior-dominated. They have a lot of good players. And, I mean, they've been a fun team to watch this year. I mean, when you have 2 wins over 2 top-5 teams, you know, you did something good this season. I mean, there's been some frustrating losses along the way, but Pitt overall has had a pretty good season.
So considering the bowl history for both teams, for Northwestern, it's gone back forever. They just haven't won bowl games. They won one, and that was in the 2012 Gator, and Pat Fitzgerald's records at 1-5. Pat Narduzzi, obviously just his second season, but recent losses against Houston when he had a big lead. The Navy lost last year after jumping out 7-0. Does this one rate highly in regards to the bowl meter of motivation level and wanting to get a victory to finish off strong?
I think they really want to get a bowl victory. And, you know, as we learned the past week, Matt Canada is taking the LSU job as an offensive coordinator, but he's staying on to coach the bowl game, and I think Narduzzi wants him to. I think they really want this game. I think they want to send James Conner out a winner, but they also want to build on, you know, going 8-5 last year. They'd like to go 9-4 this year, and I think that's important to them. So I know some Pitt fans were disappointed with the location and the matchup, but you know, it's still important. Pitt sold out their bowl allotment. Pitt usually has a bad reputation selling tickets to bowl games, but it seems the fan base is behind it. And you know, when you have a guy like James Conner, you do want to send him out on top. And, you know, he's expressed interest in playing. We've seen in recent weeks, Leonard Fournette's not going to play in the bowl game. Christian McCaffrey's not going to play in the bowl game. But James Conner is, and it's important to him.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So I try to watch as many bowl games as possible, especially once we get to the Power 5 matchups. But when the Big Ten and the ACC get together and you've got this kind of offensive explosion waiting to happen, it should be a whole lot of fun next Wednesday there at Yankee Stadium. All right, Jim, appreciate the time.
All right. Thank you, Mark.